gentlemen like to remove their jackets? It's a bit warm today. Please note that this meeting will be recorded for subsequent broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the authority. The public seating areas will be in full view with the camera, and by entering the chamber and using the public seating area, members of the public are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings as outlined above. Thanks. So, item 1, are there any apologies for absence?
It's Councillor Gareth Lewis and Councillor Chris Davis, Mr Mayor.
Thanks. Item 2, are there any declarations of interest? Yes, Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Item number 12, home to school transport, and 13, taxi licensing. Being a taxi proprietor and driver, I declare personal and prejudicial interest in that.
Thanks, Mayor. The same, really. Item 12 and item 13 are working in that industry.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to ask the Chief Executive or Gareth for some clarity. With regard to item 4, the notice of motion, do I need to declare an interest in this being an employee of the Department of Work and Pensions in Merthyr? Then I'll declare an interest in item 4.
Are there any other declarations of interest? Oh, yeah, Malcolm, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, item number 8, high street rate relief. I own a high street business, so I declare an interest in that.
I just thought I own a high street business as well. Sorry, so I'll declare an interest. Sorry about that. So, minutes of previous... Oh.
Number 8, I own a business in Merthyr.
So, minutes of the previous meetings.
I move those minutes for accuracy, Mr Mayor.
I second those, Mr Mayor.
The next item on the agenda...
With one person opposed.
Yeah. Item 4 on the agenda is a notice of motion. Is it Councillor Chris Barry? Oh.
I'll take this one, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Darren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This council disagrees with the decision to relocate the Merthyr Tydfil Department of Work and Pensions, or DWP, offices, and strongly urges the UK Government to reconsider the relocation of the offices and to enter into meaningful discussions with the PCS trade union. We further request that the Welsh Government supports the PCS's position. I move, Mr Mayor.
Seconder?
Yeah, second, Mr Mayor.
Are there any questions? Any comments? Oh, Sherelle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to say that we'd be in full support of this. It's difficult enough for our residents in the Bedlinog ward to get to Merthyr Tydfil, yet alone outside of the county borough. So I just would like to say that it'd have our full support.
Lee?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm in full support of the notice of motion. We're working with many vulnerable and socially isolated people with a struggle to get to town, let alone get to True Forest. On top of this is the cost. Getting down to Tree Forest is £8.30 on a bus and takes an hour and 15 minutes. I just can't see how it can be feasible for our families to afford this.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree and entirely support this motion. I agree with the comments that's made by previous councillors. There are a number of offices that the DWP want to move down there. I think it's figures I've seen is about 1,700 staff, and they got 400 car spaces. So that tells you about how they're going to organise matters there. I mean, we've got staff, they base locally for obvious reasons. So not only will the staff have to move there, you're talking about people who go to these offices for all sorts of queries. They're either expected to do it online, try and get somebody by phone, or make the trek down there. I mean, you know, there are staff, I understand, who currently work in the DWP office in Merthyr Tydfil, who live in Brecon. So you can imagine how they're trying to get to work. And on top of that, not only by trying to get there by bus, but they're expected to, if they catch a train, I haven't walked it myself, but I am told by others that the walk from the train station down to where the office is situated is about a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile. So there are all sorts of issues here, and frankly, this is the paranoia of the Tory government who are trying to take out public services offices as to where they're situated and move them miles away.
Thanks, Mayor. This independent administration fully in support of this. I know that on, I think it was the 9th of May, our MP Gerald Jones called for a debate in Parliament on this very issue. So we missed the boat a little bit in terms of what Gerald's doing. But fully in support of it. 250 staff, I think it is, in the local DWP office. It can't be underestimated. The impact that's going to have on this town centre. Daytime trade in this town is difficult enough, and to take those people out on a daily basis from the economy of this town could be devastating. So we absolutely and completely support this.
Malcolm?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, again, I totally support this. Councillor Barry's just made the point I was going to make about taking trade away from the town centre, which we desperately need. The other thing is we're now going to be putting increased traffic on the A470. It's already a nightmare driving down there any time of day. They've just introduced speed limits, or going to be introducing speed limits along there in an effort to cut down the nitrogen dioxide levels. And the DWP are just going to be putting more traffic, putting more nitrogen dioxide back in the system. It just seems utter complete madness to me.
Can I say that I've seen so many of these notice of motion, I support it 100% coming through here. But what do we do after? You know, we take it, we receive it, we send it off, right? So I think now we should liaise with the trade unions, which is the PCS union, and take it further. Keep in contact if it's a demonstration or whatever it is, but I don't think we should blandly take this, pass it on, down to the Welsh Assembly, up to Parliament. We should be alive and together and working with the trade union. So I'd like to add to this, if it's acceptable, that we continue to dialogue and liaise with the trade union and find out what we can do, demonstrate-wise or whatever, what we can do as a local authority to show that we mean business. So I'd like that added, to be honest, if it's possible.
So if that's being proposed as an addition, is that something that you would want to add, Councillor Roberts, or will we deal with it as an amendment to the notice of motion?
We are more than happy to add that as an amendment, Mr Mayor. And if there are no further comments, I'd like to just thank all elected members for their support this evening. It's nice to see that we all agree on something. Thank you.
No, I think the best way to deal with it is that we'll have a chat with Councillor Rogers afterwards and just get some wording. But I think members are all clear about what the gist was, that we would pursue that actively and liaise with the trade unions.
Then, thanks. Yeah.
Yes, that's complete.
Oh, it's complete, is it? Unanimous? Oh, yes, it's unanimous, yes, thanks. The next item agenda. Oh, right, yes. In the planning meeting, we sent John Thomas out and we forgot to call him back in. Oh, thanks. Agenda item 5, a notice of question. Is Councillor Barry taking that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, in February this year, Councillors O'Neill and Thomas travelled through the Merthyr Abernant Tunnel, along with representatives of RCT, County Weather Council, Welsh Government, Sustrans and Hammond. Members will be aware that this is one of the longest disused tunnels in Wales. Should the tunnel be reopened, it will have a substantial positive impact on tourism and further assist in improving our local economies. Could we have assurances that this council will continue to work positively with our colleagues in RCT in order to bring the project to open the tunnel to fruition?
Okay, I respond on behalf of the independent group. Merthyr Tunnel, I was correctly named, as 2/3 the tunnel is ours. Brunel was the original engineer that built the Merthyr Tunnel, and it is, again, when you add the name Brunel to something like this, it adds that additional clout to it. Myself and Geraint went through the tunnel and assessed it as in particularly good state of repair. And we did that together with Rhondda Cynon Taf. All this has been done together with Rhondda Cynon Taf. But we're taking much more of a leadership group, I feel. We've been to Bath. We visited a similar type of tunnel in Bath and seen what they can do when it's completely finished. Families, children, all ages, travelling back and forth, walking and cycling. There was music in the tunnel. There was air conditioning in the tunnel. It was. I don't know whether it would survive in our environment sometime. Some of the things would have to be appropriately adjusted to deal with some of our clientele would want to get in there, I think. Maybe not want to get out. But I think it's a massive opportunity for us. Healthy travel, active travel. Also, Brunel, that name, will add to the prestige of the place. And also, it's access right on the Bike Park Wales, coming down into the leisure park. And also over in Abernant, a lot of work will be done there in the railway setting, and also a nice pub is very nearby. So lots of positive opportunity, lots of work to be done, and yeah, we're working forward it, and we're quite optimistic that we can get the appropriate support and develop it in the future, Mr Mayor.
Is there any comment to be made? This is a supplemental question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'd like to thank the leader for that positive answer, and the only supplementary is our city keeps council fully updated on any progress he makes. Thank you.
Reassure you, Mr Mayor, I will do so. I'll gladly do so.
The next item on the agenda is item number 6. Organisational Development and Workforce Planning. Councillor Barry will take this.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Organisational Development and Workforce Planning. Mr Mayor, after 10 years of austerity and now what would be 3 administrations within this authority, we're left with some stark realities. A massively reduced workforce, £6.6 million worth of savings to be made, and a workforce demographic that tells us around 50% of the staff are likely to leave the authority over the next 10 to 15 years. It's highlighted at 3.4 in the supportive paper Strategic Work Plan 2018, and page 44, the figures at 4.1 and the chart at 4.2 starkly show the position we find ourselves in. Actions to mitigate the challenges we now face are highlighted at 4.1 to 4.6. For example, one of those would be the stress survey. It's an excellent tool to check the health of the authority, and the results of the first one members will consider later tonight. You will see some proposals outlined in 5.1 to 5.8. One of these is an apprenticeship programme, which this independent administration believes is a bold, progressive programme which is long overdue, Mr Mayor. This plan, I'm sure, will prove a seminal paper in terms of how this authority is prepared to take bold steps in the face of an ever-increasing demands because of the lack of investment in this authority by Welsh Government year on year. In conclusion, Mr Mayor, the magnitude of the issues this authority Consequently, the people of Merthyr County Borough Council are facing is unprecedented. This organisational development strategy and workforce plan is a major building block in the authority being able to achieve its goals and, dare I say, survive. This is an excellent report. The plan, Mr Mayor, by Fran and Jeremy and his team, I'd like to thank them for their work, commend them for the work they've done. I commend the report to the Chamber with the recommendations of 2.1 that the strategy and plan be approved. I move, Mr Mayor.
Seconder?
I second, Mr Mayor.
Thanks. Are there any questions now? Oh, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got at least 3 at the moment. Can I start off by asking this particular question? In view of the many suggestions in this draft strategy, does it mean that there's going to be an increase in any of the HR staff and any extension of contracts for them to implement this particular strategy?
Thank you, Councillor. This is the second workforce plan. The original workforce plan was submitted to Council and approved back in 2014. At the moment, it's managed within, existing resource. And there's a number of recommendations. A number of the recommendations have already been carried out, including the Management Academy and the focus on my performance scheme. So this will be managed within the existing HR team.
Thank you. It doesn't mention, I'll go on to 1.5 first. And that paragraph there reads, whilst the council is restricted to offering permanent employment, is currently considering other alternative entry points in addition to the establishment, including apprenticeship, graduate, shadowing, job trial and secondment methods, all of which will raise our external employee profile as one of choice. Then it gives an example. The council is also keen to build employability skills in its looked after children. Could someone tell me how that will improve the situation as far as looked after children is concerned in the social service department? Because my reading of it, Mr Mayor, is that particular section, and there's a workplace stress survey later on, they come top of that particular stress survey, and from my reading of it, Mr Mayor, it will require probably an increase in experienced, qualified social workers to deal with that very important aspect of children's services.
Yeah, in terms of that paragraph, we're looking at a number of entry points coming in because permanent recruitment has stopped over the last 10 years compared to what it was previously. So that includes work placements, internships and graduate schemes. In terms of the looked after children proposal, we're looking at supporting people from that scheme across the council, so not necessarily within social care, but I do appreciate the point that the council is making in terms of the additional support that they will need, and there will be more work done on that particular aspect of the recommendation. We've previously met with a number of councillors from parties to discuss the proposal in more detail, and we'll update you as we develop it further.
I wonder if I can just assist with that as well, because it's not going to require more social workers to do that job, because currently what social workers do, the social workers who are in place, is try and support care leavers to access employment. What this is about is trying to enable them to have placements within the local authority to which they could have access. So that's what they're trying to do. It doesn't need more workers, it needs people who are then able to target in the direction of the local authority, because the local authority has opportunities for them.
And my other question is in relation to the recommendations on page 32 under 2, and it simply says the organisation development strategy and workforce plan is approved. The first mention of any trade unions, or one of the first mentions, is on page 46 at the top of the page. And it says the council has formal union meetings on a weekly basis since the beginning of the efficiency programme. But this is a 15-page report with another 2.5 pages carrying it. I'm a bit surprised that it's not in there, Mr Mayor, that there will be full consultation with all the appropriate trade unions about the draft strategy which is coming before us.
Thank you, Councillor. There will be full consultation and work with the trade unions. Indeed, workforce planning and organisational development form part of the facilities agreement that was approved by Council last December, so we're very keen to work with trade unions on this.
Can I just raise a few points, Mr Mayor, in regards to Clive's points there? I'm picking up Carris's point. The issue about our looked after children is that we mustn't lose sight that we are corporate parents for these young people. So each and every one of you out there have got a responsibility to our looked after children. So therefore, we would want to do the very best for our children, because they're ours, we are the parent, which we could do to ensure that we get an employability step on the ladder. And certainly one of the things that I find, I'm discussing people in the youth justice system at the moment who are also can be in our looked after system. And the first thing they want is a secure job or a job. And I think if we can't offer a job to the children we look after as corporate parents, then we're failing in our responsibility. And we're not saying we enhance them ahead of anyone else, but we want to give them the very best start in life, because that's what we're required to do as corporate parent. And I think that's what that point is picking up there. In regards to union engagement, as you know, Clive, we engage fully with our unions, even though we're currently in dispute over a certain issue. But we've also got to remember that 50% of our workforce is not in a union either. So, you know, whilst we recognise fully all the trade unions, GMB, Unite, Unison, etc., you know, there is a huge amount of people in our workforce who are not union related. So, you know, as head of paid service, I also have to look after their welfare as well in regards to moving this forward. This, which is being proposed to you now, is actually putting us in a very good place. You know, if the unions wish to object to it, then I'm not saying they would, but that's a matter for them. But the Managers Academy, which we've introduced, is looking at our, you know, our senior managers and our middle managers, and we've got a proposal to cascade that down through the organisation to put everyone in the very best pace possible should anything happen in regards to LGR or anything like that. So it's giving people the right skill sets to ensure that they can do their jobs appropriately. The stress survey, as you said, Clive, you know, social workers are right at the top end there in regards to their workload, and we're working hard to address that. But the issue we've got as a council, and we're not the only ones here, we're not alone, is every council is seeing an increase in the looked after children sector. So, you know, we're not alone in that, but we need to manage that appropriately. And I know Lisa and the team, Mark and Annabelle, are working extremely hard at that. You agreed the focus on performance, which again is another suite of documents last council, or the council before, in regards to ensuring performance management was in place. Looking at agile working, you know, lots of authorities have got agile working currently. So, you know, we're moving with a curve here. We're making sure that our workforce is adaptable for going forward into any environment. And I think this policy will assist us. I know the union colleagues, you know, support making sure we put our people in the very best place possible. We understand everything else in regards to redundancies, etc., etc. But what this document clearly is endeavouring to do is put our people front and centre in delivering the very best workforce for moving forward in the foreseeable future.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've got two. Considering the physical challenges and weather issues, our absence levels are very good with regard to refuse, recycling, grounds and highway maintenance staff, with the departments down to the bare bones of staffing levels, though they are obviously entitled to holidays. What is the Cabinet member considering for these departments regarding agency staff?
So can you clarify, Councillor Jones? You want to know what we're doing with agency staff at the moment?
I'm sorry, before Councillor Barry goes any further, I'm not sure how that's relevant to this report. This is a report about organisational development and workforce planning. It's not about agency staffing.
Agency staffing is mentioned throughout the report.
But the question that you've asked doesn't seem to relate to what this report is about. You've asked a very specific question about a particular area of work and agency staffing. This is about organisational development. I don't see how it's relevant.
Will there be any reorganisation within those departments? That's basically where I'm coming from. Can the Cabinet member tell me what he is considering with regard to agency staff within the refuse recycling, grounds and highway maintenance staff departments?
Councillor Jones, we're talking about organisational development and progression planning within the workforce. I just don't see how you're relevant there.
The question is simple.
Perhaps you got the next. You got another question, have you?
How are the financial benefits affected by the fact that when staff take on extra responsibilities, they often have a job evaluation which may entitle them, rightly, to a potential increase in their pay point and thereby costs to the council?
I think these the questions that are being posed don't relate to the policy. I think the questions that are being posed are as a consequence of this authority shrinking in size. Now, this policy is endeavouring to put our workforce in the very best place forward, moving forward. You know, it was been mentioned earlier that we've got to find 6.6 million next year. And I can understand your point, Dave, in regards to agency workers. The issue about agency workers, we use agency workers as and when appropriate currently because that's the directive. The aim is to reduce the number of agency workers and actually have full-time workers if we can. But on occasions, that's not always feasible because you will know better than I, okay? When a refuge vehicle driver doesn't turn up on the morning and we've got a crew ready to go out, the only way we can backfill that is through an agency worker. So that's what we will do. But again, this policy is looking at skill sets, looking at putting people in best place forward, looking at reconfiguring the workforce if we have to do that, to ensure that the figure, and the figure is mentioned in there, it's over £2 million, okay, in the financial implication, is to try and reduce that cost because we cannot maintain the same workforce using agency workers day in, day out. There's a consequence to that. So that, you know, hopefully we'll deal with that.
Thank you. That clarifies the first part of it. But when you talk about the savings that are potentially made, if
the point about job evaluation, clearly, you know, the council's currently, well, it adopted a job evaluation process about 10 years ago. A natural consequence on occasion is that some of our workers have an increase in their grade. They go through the appeals process, their job actually changes, and actually they get an increase in wage. What we tend to do is build an amount of money into the savings plan, which normally addresses any consequence of that moving forward. Now, on occasions, people don't move up one grade, they move up 2 grades. But we've got, again, to try and mitigate that, because what we can't keep doing is taking people out of the organisation and, you know, asking them to do 2 or 3 people's jobs. There needs to be a discussion in this chamber about saying, actually, there are things we cannot do anymore. And, you know, that's a matter for me and my management team to decide, you know, to give you recommendations to say, in the order of priorities, these things which we must do, these are things will be nice to do, and these are things that we don't have to do. And I think as we again come forward in the next budget rounds, we will be making those, you know, making that very plain and clear to you. But I understand that it's a natural consequence, unfortunately, of taking people out of the organisation and expecting other people to pick it up. But we do make a big saving, as you know.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But that was the point I was coming to. And thank you very much, because you've answered my supplementary as well. I'd just like to thank you for answering my first question. Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
To say that the answers given by Gareth Chapman, I think, were excellent answers, to be honest with you. But I'd like to come back to Councillor Barry, because he either couldn't or wouldn't answer the questions. And I put it generally, what is going to happen in the future, and I'll explain to you why. What's going to happen in the future with agency workers? Are we looking at a phase or a time when there'll be no agency workers working in the county borough? Sorry.
Again, I think within the report we've outlined a number of measures where we're looking to develop the workforce. We currently have that level of usage of agency worker. By necessity, when we're down to the levels we're down to, it's difficult not to use agency workers, but we are looking to mitigate that situation. We are looking to move towards a situation where we can drastically reduce those costs. There's a cost there which is huge for us, and it would be remiss of us if we didn't look at those areas and try and reduce that cost. We can't reduce it to a point, I don't think, where we'll ever say we can't use agency workers, but we are looking at it, I guarantee you, and we will try and reduce that cost as best we can. This report is about developing the workforce and not about agency workers per se, and I think it's an excellent report. Again, I commend Fran, Jeremy and the team, and hopefully we can stick to the point.
Also to remember on the question that is such a thing as multitasking. And I think multitasking is very, very important with the local authority. For a start, part of my question is, if there was fail on the lorry or the refuse, whatever, somebody should be on standby and ready to fill in. Multitasking must be part of this local authority. If not, you're going to fail.
Can I answer that, Tony? Would you mind? Okay. I think the issue is, you make a very valid point. If we can multitask individuals, we will. Okay? So if there's a right place, a right time, then we'll do that. But on occasions, there isn't the right place, there isn't the right time, and we can't. But I agree wholeheartedly with you that in specific circumstances, we should be able to multitask. And you'll recognise we do. When we got a whiteout, or there's gritting required, our highways people, our refuge people, will drive our gritters. So they are, you know, the HGV drivers, so they drive the gritting vehicle. I agree with Councillor Barry. You know, whilst Councillor Barry answers these questions, head of paid service, I got responsibility for the staffing of this authority. The difficulty we've got is we can never give a categoric guarantee that there will be no agency workers, because we cannot survive. Certainly in some areas, certainly, you know, care homes, maybe on refuge, maybe in lots of areas where all of a sudden someone turns in sick, rings in sick, fails to turn up. Because we're under a statutory requirement to get certain numbers of staff in various places, we need various drivers with requisite certificates, we will then have to go to an agency. But we will mitigate as far as we can. The other thing that Jeremy and the team are currently looking at, where we go to an agency currently, we're also exploring as part of another process whether we can form our own pool of individuals. So, you know, if there's an issue, we can call on them ourselves. So therefore, we give people the opportunity to do their jobs within this authority. So we're looking at all those avenues. The unfortunate thing is, if there was lots of monies flowing around in the system, we wouldn't be in this position. There ain't much money in the system, so we have to do the very best with what we've got.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that very point of the financial implications, and I read the words here because someone told me many years ago, words are very important. So on page 35, under 661, the proposals will help to reduce levels of agency usage and overtime within the authority. The costs are currently £2,370,690.69. Now, I can see the Steve Jones, the Director of Finance, by the side of you, and I'm sure, Mr. Mayor, that he's very interested in that figure, because I agree entirely that we need to get the question of usage, agency usage and overtime down. So the question is, have you got a target figure to reduce this enormous sum for next year and the year after and the year after?
Because we're just going to be working extremely hard. This issue isn't new. This issue was in the previous administration. We've been working hard at agency, and Dave will know, you will know, Clive, in regards to refuge, instead of having agency workers, we created 10 jobs. We brought people onto full-time employment, which was of great benefit. The issue we've got to look at is, and again, a consequence is, if we can bring apprenticeships in, if we can bring apprenticeships for our looked after children in, etc., that'll drive down our cost, because the apprenticeship levy plus what we have to pay them won't be the same as paying an agency worker. So, it's replacing one with the other, but also giving opportunities. We're working extremely hard to drive down the agency workforce in this authority. There are very specific areas we're currently targeting, our care homes, because of staffing limits and staffing numbers in there for working. Again, we recruit quite a lot of agency workers. So we're just looking extremely hard. There's no target. The best figure in there would be 0 in reality. But if we put a 0 figure in there, we'll either increase our workforce by tenfold, or we put other options in place. We're working extremely hard. The only assurance I can give you is hopefully by the time we come to the budget in October, November, we will have reduced the agency figure down. Whether or not it's good enough is another issue, but clearly, apart from council will look at it, then various scrutiny committees can look at it, and audit can look at it. It's not new to those committees because they've looked at it time and time again. We cannot survive without agency workers unless we do some drastic issues.
Are there any other questions? Tanya?
Yeah, just to say that, to pick up on Councillor Jones's comment, really, it is a question, but would it be possible, Gareth, to maybe bring back this time next year the agency figure, because that might be a nice way of sort of celebrating the success of this as well. So I wonder whether that's possible.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do it on an annual basis, because Jeremy and the HR team and finance will get those figures. So, it may be that, even before this time next year, when we get to the budget submission, because I would have thought you, as the elected representatives, would want us to be driving down that figure, because it's costing us a lot of money. And as I say, we got 6.6 million to find. If we could fill that gap with $1 million of that's $1 million less we've got to find. So, we will be working extremely hard, and the chief officers who've got responsibility for their budget will be working hard at that figure.
So, if there's no more questions, any comments? Oh, Lisa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment in relation to this particular report. I mean, obviously, I welcome the report because it is about succession planning. So where we've got perhaps, in fairness to Tony, he made a very valid point about what if we've got somebody that goes off sick or goes off on holidays, how do we then prepare for that? Well, it's about succession planning, but it's about offering those opportunities to a varied audience, and as the Chief Executive has said, apprenticeships, something of which I'm very passionate about. I've had 22 years experience of working as apprenticeships, even longer if I go back to when I was 16 years old and was actually an apprentice myself, and it was the only door that was open to me at 16 years old. I didn't want to go into FE, I didn't want to go into HE, so I went into work-based learning. So fantastic opportunities for the young people. We want to grow their economy in Merthyr Tydfil. This report is about organisational development and workforce planning. Taking on Tanya's point and Councillor Jones's point, both Councillor Jones's points actually, yes, we do want to reduce the agency staff that we have and those numbers and those figures, but this really is a positive report about taking this council forward and doing that by opening those doors and those opportunities to a wider audience. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Obviously, we've had questions from Councillor Clive Jones and Councillor David Jones, as is their right as elected members. But I would like to just say that this Labour group are in total support of this policy and this plan. I agree with Councillor Barry, it is an excellent report, and I'd also like to commend the HR department on the report. But I don't know how it happened, but from the questions it seemed like we were going to vote against it. That isn't the case. We're in total support of this. Obviously questions were asked and answers were given, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other comments? Oh, yes. Oh, okay. Councillor Jones, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a comment on comments that Gareth Chapman made. and it's in relation to the fact that I've heard this figure on a few other occasions, that only 50% of the staff here are in the trade union. My understanding is that there are many, many members of staff here who don't use the check-off system. So how anybody here can say with hand on heart they know exactly that there are 50% of staff not in the trade union, I really don't know.
Councillor O'Neill to finish then.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm glad we got back to the issue of the report, because we kind of went somewhere else, I think. It would be great to have omni-competent staff. We'd all love to do that. We'd love to match our staff against demand. And if we hadn't had such cuts that were made not against demand, we wouldn't be in the position we are today. We've inherited a position where cuts were made not accounting for demand, seasonal demand, particularly neighbourhood services, which is a seasonal job. We all know that. So we picked it up from day one to look at it with HR, with Jeremy in particular, because he was with us, knew us well to begin with. And this is the product of it. We should put that across every area of business and look to grow our own staff and fill those roles and develop a succession plan, particularly based on the age profile of some of our staff. And in that, there should be ability to save money and also enhance skills. It's called working together. It's designing a workforce against your demand. It's very difficult in a service delivery year because it moves around. Look, the sun is shining, that will change demand. So it's not as simple as that. And I think I wish the question was a little bit more direct, so we give a little bit more direct answers. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll go to the votes now then. Thanks. There, it's unanimous then, thanks. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 7, council tax exemption for care leavers. And, oh yes, Councillor Barry's taking this one.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Following a recent campaign by the Children's Commissioner and the WLGA's executive endorsed a paper which has led to this independent administration bringing this report tonight to implement council tax exemption for care leavers. The financial implications aren't great, if we're honest. However, it is an example of how this authority is prepared to support some of our most vulnerable in society. The recommendations are straight there, 2.1, and it's for the approval to amend the council's discretionary relief policy to exempt care leavers. I move, Mr Mayor.
Is there a second?
A second, Mr Mayor.
Are there any questions? No? Are there any comments? No? Oh, we could go straight to the vote then. Thanks. So the voting's complete. Oh, it's unanimous. The next item I'll have to declare an interest, so Councillor Barrett perhaps can come up here. Thanks.
Hello to you, Councillor Barry.
Hi, Mr Deputy Mayor. Yet more good news brought by this administration. There's a widely held belief that business rates in Merthyr are too high for businesses to thrive here. In Merthyr High Street alone, there are 646 properties, 331 qualify for small business rate reduction, 47 qualify for charitable business rate reduction, 378, nearly 60% of the businesses don't pay full rate relief in Merthyr. On top of this, we're bringing the report tonight, the High Street Rate Relief Scheme 1819. A scheme which will cover all high streets, which will include Kevin, Dowless, Treharris, down Lower Valley, and obviously Merthyr High Street. Unfortunately, Councillor Jones, it doesn't cover the Toyne area, it's all high streets. 250 Tier 1 750 tier 2, with a rateable value on their businesses of 50,000 or less. This is outlined in 4.1 to 4.5. The relief will run from April 18 to 31st of March 19. Recommendations 2.1 to 2.2. I move, Mr. Mayor.
Have we got a second for a motion?
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions? Councillor Chris Barry.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, did Councillor Barry forget to thank the Welsh Government for giving the money? Because he slated them every time there's been a suggested cut in money anywhere.
Yes, I did.
Councillor Carter.
Yeah, just a quick question, is probably my memory. With regards to this, during the previous administration, was there any... Did we have high street rate relief scheme in the previous administration? I can't quite remember now.
Yeah, there was a scheme last year. There was slightly more actually. The tier 1 last year was 500 and the tier 2 was 1500. Last year was the first year that was introduced. So this is basically a continuation of that scheme.
Okay, so the scheme was introduced by the Labour group and not by the independent group then?
It's a Welsh Government scheme, but yeah, it was introduced by the...
And the figures are different, so I think we declare this as a new one.
Any more questions? Any comments? Councillor Roberts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. So the more good news is the independent administration is following the good work of the previous Labour administration. Thank you.
After that, we'll put it to the vote. Thank you, that's unanimous. Now I'll call back in the people left. Thank you.
Agenda number 9, workplace stress survey. Who's going to take Councillor Barry will take this one.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The workplace stress survey. We spoke earlier during the vote on organisational development and workforce planning of some of the actions taken to mitigate the unprecedented workforce challenges that we now face. One of these actions was the introduction last summer of the workforce stress survey, being the only authority in Wales to do so. The response rate wasn't great, 25–26%, but the returns are encouraging and lessons have been learned, and we will hopefully learn from those and have a better participation rate into the future. Simply methodology is at 4, main findings are at 5, and we move to the recommendations 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. I move, Mr. Mayor.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions? Councillor Carter? Councillor Carter, yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I welcome the workplace stress survey, actually. Working in an organisation where we have a survey of this kind every single year, and we have them for a long time. Our returns are roughly 80-odd%. With regards to this, the returns which have come back are pretty poor, if I was being honest. Can I ask how they're going to improve this going forward, and what have we learnt, and how we're going to adapt going forward with this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Excuse me. One of the concerns from the feedback we had was that some staff were reluctant to complete the survey. The survey, for the most part, was completed online using a software system, and the feedback I had from managers and staff was that there was some concern that it might be traced back to individuals. So the anonymity was an important factor, and one of the things that we change in this year, because we won't run it again in August, is to have entirely paper-based surveys, so that there is no possible way of tracing anybody.
And do you think that this alone will help increase the response then, or have you got any other avenues which you're looking at?
Yeah, we're going to be increasing the amount of consultation and publicisation of the survey, working with our comms team, and we're also going to run it for a much shorter period of time. Again, we were a bit worried that with a 3-month period last year, some staff felt probably just, we competed later on. So we're going to try and focus it into a narrower time period.
Councillor Jones?
Mr Mayor, can I just say before Clive comes in, Brent, the other issue we'll pick up is that the managers will encourage their staff to complete, because this is very important to us. Because if we don't know our workforce, then, and the impacts that whatever's having on them, then, a stressed workforce, you're not getting the very best out of them. So, what Alan has said is that we'll do our very best to raise the profile of this through just the normal comms agenda, but we'll also ensure that the managers encourage their teams and their individuals to complete the survey.
Thanks, Gareth.
Councillor Jones?
Well, I got 2 questions here on numbers that are in the report, but can I just clarify clearly, Mr Mayor, from what Alan Dinham said? Am I right in saying your answer to Councillor Carter was, or did I mishear you, that under the system that you adopted, there was a fear from staff that he could trace this, and it was traceable?
No, Councillor. From my understanding of the system, it wasn't traceable, but that was the perception within some teams. The response rate varied tremendously, from 96% in some teams to as low as 7% in others. So it was perhaps the culture and the understanding of, and the fear perhaps of using computers to enter data into. That's what we think, and that's why we changed it this year.
Right. Can I take you to page 84 and 3.3? And seeking clarification on the numbers that you've got in there. You've referred to a UK number, number of cases, really work-related stress in 16-17 of 526,000, and the rate works out at 1,610 per 100,000 workers. Then it goes on to refer to Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council. It equates to 39 cases of work-related stress per year, based on a head count figure 2,447. Now, the figures I've seen elsewhere is that even in 16-17, we didn't have just under 2,500 in the workforce. So, is that figure accurate?
Thank you, Councillor. It was a figure I had from our payroll team. I just asked them for the figure, and
Mr Mayor. Clarity here, that includes teaching staff and school-based staff. Our workforce is around 1,600, and then you've got the teaching and the staff in the schools as well, so that gives you a general figure. And it'll also include, obviously, seasonal workers, etc. So in the summertime, that's when our employment figures are extremely high. Obviously, if you did this survey during the winter period, then the numbers would reduce because our workforce fluxes so much. We get additional people in lots of areas where we don't, in the summer, where we don't have them in the winter period.
Thank you for that. Sorry, we got another question, and it's on page 85 under 5, the main findings, 5.1, because you've just said, Gareth, that it's approximately 1,600 excluding the schools. Well, the figure that was surveyed here, the figures mentioned, is 945. So how does that equate to, if it's 1,600, where do we get the figure of 945 from?
Thank you. Yeah, it's the summer months, and it obviously didn't include our teaching staff. So that's where the...
Councillor, it was the number of staff that were on the computer system, because the survey they went out was computer-based, not paper-based.
You're not getting accurate figures here, Mr. Mayor. You know, you obviously, I'm making a comment now, but you need a workplace system to have an accurate figure.
Just picking up your point. Brandon, just picking up your point, you're right there. Clearly, you know, a lot of office-based staff are computer-based. The issue we've got is we won't be picking up our dom care staff, we won't be picking up our refuge vehicles, we won't be picking up our, you know, our grass cutters and people like that. So I think going to the paper system will assist us a lot more than where we currently are. You know, I think the thing to really recognise is this is the first one we've done, and we are the first local authority in Wales to do it. So, you know, we ought to be shouting from the rooftops, this is an exemplar for us, but we've got to learn by our mistakes.
Are there any other questions? He does want to do it now, yeah. If there's no questions, are there any other comments? Oh, Councillor Jones.
Yes, I mean, there is such a thing, I understand, that can be put on a medical certificate nowadays, and that's workplace stress. And it's utilised by some GPs, not by others. But apparently, there is such a thing as workplace stress. So it's, you know, I just ask the question to make sure that we are getting it right. Clearly, there's a few glitches in the system to get it right, and I welcome the report. But we need to get to the bottom of it, because, Mr. Mayor, our workforce is reducing. You've got the Tory government are absolutely paranoid on reducing expenditure year after year after year and reducing the numbers, and it's absolutely inevitable that the staff left are going to suffer from some forms of stress. It might come out with other things on the medical certificate, but it's there. And what we need to find out here, if we are the first to do it, exactly what is happening to all the staff.
Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're on comments, aren't we?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
I wasn't asleep then. It does say at 4.2 that the survey was made available just in 2 different formats, online and paper. So obviously that did happen. Obviously, with a poor rate, my fear is it's not a true representation of stress levels. So again, this Labour group are in total support of this, and we want to make it a success, because without our staff being fit and healthy, they can't deliver the services for the public. So once again, questions are being asked for the right reasons, but we are in total support.
Thanks, Councillor Carter.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I echo what Councillor Roberts has said. I welcome the report, and I think it's something which is definitely what we need to work on going forward. It's one of the things which is becoming more and more prominent as we're going through in society in general as well. I think there's a lot of learning curves with regard to what we can do going forward. But the only comment I would like to make really is what worked well in the organisation where I am is not just the managers who are pushing it as well, but actually asking the staff themselves to take ownership of it, and perhaps them to drive it through in their departments. And it works really well with us, because they feel they can open up a little bit more as well. So it's just a suggestion. So. Not that I'm an expert, Alan.
Did you have a comment?
I echo what Brenda said, coming from an organisation that went through this, but I would commend the council on being the first and doing it, and I think in a much more challenging environment than certainly my old organisation. You have 3 strands to this. You've got to get confidence in the systems that get that data out. You've got to get confidence in the principle of it. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it for the right reasons? And there's got to be confidence in the outcomes afterwards that are going to be the right outcomes to support the workforce. And guess what? We not only save money by keeping people in work, we save money by keeping people happy in work. And I think that's the guiding principle. So I think there's a lot of sensible debate around the issue, and it's great to see that everybody's on side with it. I think it's absolutely right that the pressure can't come from top alone, it must come from the bottom up as well. But I don't think there's anything more important than getting that feeling in work that people want to be in work, and they want to feel valued in work.
Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, thank you. As again, I support the piece of work being done,
But doesn't the fact that this report was able to identify departments of just a few people highlight the staff's feelings that they were identifiable? So can't we make sure the next time we do it, we have no identifying marks on it, no numbers, anything that would look at the staff, make sure that the staff can't be traced back? Thank you.
Thanks. So, did Councillor Barry want to close? Anything to say to close? No.
Welcome all the comments, really. I think the key for me is that we're one of the only authority in Wales to be doing it. And it just goes to show our ambition and the intent that this report was brought. I think there are learning curves. I think Alan will acknowledge that. We've spoken of that. But I think it's only to be commended. And I think in future, we bring this back in 12 months' time. It'll be interesting to see where we are then and see what response rates we've got. And perhaps it'll be more reflective of the organisation. And we can only all learn from that, which is great.
We'd like to vote on it now then. Thanks. Oh, yeah, it's complete. It's unanimous, yes. The next item on the agenda item 10, Welsh Language Annual Monitoring Report for 2017-18. I think Councillor Barry's taking that one again.
Sorry for hogging it tonight, but Welsh Language and Annual Monitoring Report 17-18 was initially to come to Council as an information report. But I think this administration is determined to champion the Welsh language. We as an administration felt an information report will not recognise, support and provide the momentum gained over the first year. Now, Chris Davis was to talk to the report tonight. Unfortunately, he's been called away on some urgent business. But I'll hand you over to Kerry O'Donovan, who can give us a little bit of background and talk about the work that's happened over the last 12 months, and I'll make the recommendation then, if that's okay.
Diolch yn fawr, Councillor Barry. We're required to compile an annual report by the 30th of June of each year, and that deals with the way in which we've complied with the service delivery, policy making and operational standards. The report attached as Appendix 1, as Councillor Barry touched upon, was approved by Cabinet on the 20th of June and sets out the progress that we continue to make towards complying with the standards. And just to summarise some of the progress that is set out in the report, it touches upon the development and publication of our promotional strategy that was approved by full council back in November. It touches upon the development of the Shemairaman campaign and engagement with our schools to design a logo for the campaign. And we've had very positive comments from the Welsh Language Commissioner on that. And we've been commended as good practice from the Welsh Language Commissioner in relation to that piece of work that we continue to take forward. Some other achievements have been the excellent work and achievements by Penedre High School pupils and teachers at the 27th year of Eisteddfod, being the best English medium school for achievements. And also another good progress that we're making is the Earth Sports Development Project, working in partnership with the Earth and Active Merthyr Tydfil, and a summary of that similar progress is shown in Appendix A and Appendix B of the report. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Kerry. As you can see, great progress over this last year, and we thought we'd bring it just to keep that momentum going and keep the profile high. Some great achievements over the last year. I think I mentioned to both Kerry and Hugh for driving this forward as well. They've done a tremendous job over the last 12 months. So it's just to move the recommendation to 2.1 then, so I move, Mr Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
I second, Mr Mayor.
Thanks. Are there any questions? Are there any comments? Oh, Councillor Davis.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate Penedre High School on their performance at this year's Eisteddfod. Yet again, they were the most successful English medium school in Wales, winning 21 medals. They also qualified for and competed in the final of the Welsh Language Recitation Competition for years 10 to 13. It's a fantastic achievement considering there are no year 12 or 13 in the high school. So da iawn Penedre.
Thanks. If there's no, Tanya?
Yeah, just to mirror what Councillor Davis said for Penedre, really. I'm a councillor, a governor in Penedre and also a parent of a pupil at Penedre, and I'd just like to congratulate them, really. I find that they're exceptional and they don't always get the credit that they deserve. So it's nice to see them being recognised.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to say how pleased I am to see this report coming in. Obviously, as a fluent Welsh speaker and seeing the work that Kerry and Hugh have done. And I just want to say thank you to yourself, Mr Mayor, for opening the meeting this evening in the language of Welsh and so very confidently. Thank you very much.
So if there's no, have you got anything to say to close? Oh, it's complete. So that was unanimous in favour. The next item is item agenda 11. There's no need for anyone to leave the chamber because this item's to be deferred. Councillor Mitten will
No, not this one, the next one. 11, go, just let Lisa speak to
this is
this one is the next.
So, next item's... Oh, no. Sorry about that. Agenda item 11, 21st Century Schools Programme, proposed new bill for Ysgol-y-Graig Primary School. Councillor Mitten. No, it's Andrew. Yes, Kerry Gibbs, yes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We get there in the end. Okay, this is a report on 21st Century Schools Programme, the proposed new build for Ysgol-y-Graig Primary School, and this is purely to the consideration of the objections to the appropriation of the land. To consider objections received to the above mentioned, recently advertised proposal relating to the appropriation of 2 areas of land in Cefn Coed for planning purposes, namely the former Faen and Penderyn school site and the Godra Coed playing field. The objections relate to the Godra Coed site only. I'd also like to mention there's 10 objections in there. They're all exactly the same, written on the same paper, same font, same format. They were received after the deadline and they don't actually correlate to what this consultation was for. So there are no financial implications. So take you straight on to the recommendations. 2.1. The objections to the proposals be noted but discounted as they do not specifically relate to the land appropriation. I therefore move.
Is there a seconder?
Well, yes, Mr Mayor, I will second that now. Thank you very much.
Sorry. Are there any questions? Councillor Jones?
Why were these objections accepted after the closing date of the 2nd of March? I mean, is there any reasons? They seem to come in dribs then, on three different occasions. Why were they accepted?
As I understand it, I don't think you have an option. If somebody files an objection, even though it's outside of the date, the wise practice is that we report it to you. And that's all that this is reporting it to you. Because people have gone to the trouble of filing it, we've dealt with it.
Questions? There are any comments? No? Oh, well, we'll take it to the vote then, thanks. Oh, that's complete, so it's unanimous that. Agenda item 12, there's no need for any, it's post-16 home to school transport. There's no need for anyone to leave the chamber because I understand it's being deferred. So perhaps Lisa could explain the reason why it's being deferred.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a joint report between myself and Councillor Geraint-Thomas. The reason the item is being deferred is because we've had a great response to the consultation. The officers have done a fantastic amount of work and we've just recently seen a really great prospectus from Merthyr College as well. However, the element of offer which would support a number of our young people, i.e. for example, plumbing and electrics, etc. We're due to have a meeting with the college and also with one of our local training providers, Tidville Training, in a week or two, and they can't confirm that until contract negotiations are dealt with and signed off on the 1st of August. So just due to timelines, we have to wait for that, just to confirm that that additionality will be available for our young people within this county borough. So that's the reason we're deferring it. We'll come back to you as soon as we can and as soon as we've had those discussions with both Tidville Training and the college. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry? Oh, yes, yeah. The next item on the agenda is agenda item 13, taxi licence and application policy. So I understand Geraint's going to lead on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taxi licensing application policy. The summary report is on the 20th of September 2017. The Planning, Licensing and Regulatory Committee agreed for a public consultation exercise be undertaken with a view to the amendment of the taxi licensing application process to introduce a requirement for a knowledge test for new applicants for hackney carriage and private hire drivers. At this committee amendments were approved to the existing policy regarding the replacement of the now unavailable Driving Standards Agency advanced test with a similar assessment provided by Blue Lamp Trust, and clarification that vehicle renewal applications and MOT tests can be renewed no sooner than 28 days before the expiry of existing licence. The consultation exercise on the introduction of the knowledge test was conducted with 12 of 17 respondents agreeing to the introduction of a test, 4 respondents disagreeing with the test and 1 respondent undecided. I'm going to go straight to the recommendations in 2.1 and 2.2, that the Council approve that the taxi licence application policy be amended with the introduction of a knowledge test and changes outlined in 1.2, and this be put to full Council for approval. And in 2.2, that delegated authority is given to the Trading Standards Licensing and Transport Manager to review the knowledge tests and update as appropriate where changes to legislation and best practice arise, and review current fees in conjunction with Tidville Training. I so move.
I second. Yes, seconded there.
Mr. Mayor, my question concerns within this training, proposed training from Tidville Training, is safeguarding. My question is how existing taxi drivers would be, what's the word, taught, they are given their training on that element, because it's obviously vitally important for the clientele they've got, you know, maybe dealing with.
Councillor Richards, as part of the corporate safeguarding group, we've looked at safeguarding for the last 18 months to 2 years since the Rotherham report was first published. What we have done is we've introduced safeguarding training for all our school transport operators as a priority, and that has been carried out in conjunction with the police and our colleagues in social services, and we're looking to roll out the safeguarding element to all existing taxi licence holders regardless of the test. So the safeguarding is paramount, but by bringing in a test, we can also, new applicants with perhaps no experience, we can make sure that they're hitting the ground running on safeguarding, and we haven't got to do a catch-up in terms of training.
Thank you, Paul. Pleased to hear that.
Yeah. Malcolm?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like a reassurance that the knowledge test is going to cover the whole of the borough, not just Merthyr Town Centre. There are places outside which people do visit.
Without giving away the questions that might be in the knowledge test, I can assure that all areas of Merthyr Tydfil are covered within it.
Councillor Skinner.
Yeah, I think this is obviously a positive thing, but what I would hate to see happen, as trying to be proactive and be positive, is for a negative consequence to come out of it. And I would hate to see a taxi driver lose his livelihood because of failing the test. Could you give reassurances that if they were to fail, what support is available, or is it possible for them to lose their livelihoods as a result?
this is where we see a positive working with Tidville Training. The knowledge test is the starting point with Tidville Training. We've had a lot of meetings with them and how this can be expanded to not just a test of whether you become a taxi driver or not, but also upskilling whilst a taxi driver. I know, speaking with Councillor Thomas, we're keen for Welsh to be promoted within the taxi trade. And what Tidville Training are hoping to develop is somebody who's new, who wants to become a taxi driver. They can actually bring some training courses in prior to the test, so we can do all we can to try and get our drivers at the required level before sitting. And I see that as a key benefit of going with Tidville Training, whereas perhaps we wouldn't have been able to offer that as an authority. So it's going to be very much, in its infancy, it is going to be a knowledge test, but Tidville Training are committed to supporting the drivers to get through the test with training and upskilling.
Any other questions? We go on to comments. Is there any other, Malcolm?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I thoroughly welcome this recommendation. It's something that the Planning Licensing Committee have been asking for a long time. It's going to be a great positive to the taxi fleet within Merthyr. It's going to lead to greater confidence from the people using it. I know we've had a number of applications recently. I guess it's been an ongoing thing from people who we suspect have no intention of working in Merthyr Tydfil and just applying for a licence here. So the introduction of the knowledge test is going to ensure at least, you know, people who apply are going to intend working in Merthyr Tydfil. So very positive thing, very pleased to see this report.
Howard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Chair of Planning and Licensing Committee, we've fully endorsed this because we've seen in the past couple of years where people have, as Councillor Coleman just explained, people from outside the area getting licences with no intention of working in the Merthyr area. So see one step of helping to sort that problem out. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully endorse what is in this report, and the other members have referred to it, and highlight two of them, and that is new applicants must present an advanced driving certificate from an approved provider as part of their applications. Currently, if someone applies and they've been driving for 12 months, they can be granted a licence. And the knowledge test, that all new applicants will have to pass a knowledge test to demonstrate they have required local knowledge of Merthyr Tydfil along with a numeracy test. The chaired the licensing committee in the last administration, where we've had a steady stream of applicants from outside the county borough, and they were only here for one reason, is that they didn't have this test. For example, in Cardiff, where we had several people applying, and it's only right and proper that they should have it here. I think most of them just about found their way up the A470, leave alone being jumped in a taxi here, and somebody said, take me to Clwydyfargo, or he'll bring a Gwyddel. They wouldn't have a clue where you are.
To close then, Geraint.
Thank you, Clive. Merthyr is a European and national tourist destination, but more importantly, it's a Welsh tourist destination. People come here from far and wide. They get off the train, they get off the bus, they get on a taxi, and they say, please can you take me to Rock UK down in Trelewis, or Parkwood up in Ponstycyth. And the taxi drivers have got to know where they're going, you know, and the best and the cheapest route for the customer. And if you can say Siamai and diolch yn fawr at the end of it, I think it's a fantastic service.
Thanks. So if we'd like to take it, oh yes.
Just on
No, because he's close. Sorry about that. So if we. It's complete. So that's unanimous. Unfortunately, I got to go to an important meeting now, so Councillor Barrett can take the chair. Just to say, we had 3 staff members leave today, Howard, Judith and Julie. And Judith has worked here for 36 years. So we were all sorry to see them go, and we had a bit of an afternoon with them. So they were all sorry to leave, but we wish them all the best for the future. So sorry I've got to go.
Right, members, we go on to item number 14, approval of air quality management area action. And it's Councillor Geraint Thomas Tickers. Oh, I forgot last year. Can somebody call him back in, please? Councillor Geraint Thomas, take this.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. This report is the approval of Air Quality Management Area Action Plan. The summary of the report is set out between 1.1 and 1.9. Now, I'm not going to read through all that, as most of us have seen this on numerous occasions. It's gone through a fantastic consultation process where our officers have been applauded by the public. We've got a plethora of officers sitting here today. That's going to take, all the questions that any of us could think of, I think, all field to them, right? So good luck with that lot. So I'm going to go straight to the, I will say, I'm going to go straight to the recommendations in 2.1, which stipulates that we're going to go for the option 1A that came out of the consultation, which is basically reversing the high street from the bottom end of town up to Portmore Circus. So the recommendation 2.1 says Council approves the AKAP, which recommends the implementation of option 1A to provide alternative northbound route for vehicles using the roundabout outside Tesco, and agrees to it being submitted to Welsh Government by 31st of July 2018 for inspection and agreement. Failure to submit the AQAP by the deadline would result in an intervention by Welsh Government. I so move.
Second motion.
I second, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor David Jones, questions?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Nitrogen dioxide is one of the 9 pollutants that all local authorities in Wales have a statutory duty to monitor under the Air Quality Wales Regulations 2010. Road transport is the main cause of nitrogen dioxide associated with air quality issues, and high levels are associated with damage to lung function and enhancement of the response to allergens in sensitive individuals. Given that the Welsh Government objective for nitrogen dioxide is 40 micrograms per cubic metre, and Environmental Health are indicating that option 1A will reduce the nitrogen dioxide levels to circa 36 milligrams per cubic metre, can I ask the portfolio member if he thinks that the chosen options go far enough to reduce the nitrogen dioxide levels in the AQMA, and why? I have 2 others, please, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. There are some extreme measures if we want to take it any further, but I'm sure I'll pass you over to Llewellyn and Susan, who could fully guide you on that.
The objective of the changes is to lower the levels as far as reasonably practicable. So we would hope to lower the levels below 36, but that's our margin where we need to get it below 40 legally, and we need a margin of error, and this is why we've got the 36 figure, but I would hope that we can get it a lot lower than that.
Thank you for that. I was aware of that, as we've discussed it in scrutiny previously. Only because the AQMA is in his area, can I ask the same of the leader, please?
do you think the chosen options go far enough to reduce the nitrogen dioxide levels in the AQMA?
I mean, the amount of work that's gone into this has been immense. I, unlike others, have turned up at most of the consultations and spoken to the public and spoken to our experts, and they've done a fantastic job. It's not whether I think it goes far enough, it's whether I listen to the experts and respond to the experts, and also consultation has gone into it. What I think is it's been an excellent job. What I think is we couldn't have done any more. What I think is, I don't know the future, but I'm confident with what Sue has just said will be the outcome. Thank you.
One last one then. Can I propose an amendment to the recommendation that every 6 months after implementation, a report is brought back to Council to give an update on the air quality in the AQMA?
I don't know if either you can agree to add that into your recommendation, or that will need to be dealt with as an amendment. Are you clear with what Councillor David Jones is asking? Or do you want him to explain that a bit further?
What I'm asking is that after the plan has been implemented, that every 6 months a report comes back to Council and that we get an update on the levels in the AQMA.
So you're asking for an update every 6 months. I wonder if the officers can say whether that's actually feasible.
Measuring air quality, it takes a long period of time before we'll be aware of whether this has been successful or not. You're looking about a year's worth of results, and it depends on the timing of when the plan is implemented. The winter months are critical to measuring air quality, so we would need 3 months worth of results before we could comment on the progress we're making. The sorts of things you can do with interim measures is look at the volumes of traffic, and you can calculate from that whether you think that you're on the right track.
So do you want to proceed with that amendment, Councillor Jones? Or
But what we're saying is after implementation, 6 months after implementation.
No, what I'm saying is we need 12 months of data realistically to get a good idea of where we will be at. But the critical periods are over the winter months. So depending on when the plan is implemented, if we could get 3 months data, say from January to March, we'll have a good idea of where we're up to. But if we don't implement the plan until springtime, then we won't have that data.
And can I amend my amendment to every 12 months? You know, it is a process, and it's a very, technical process as well. You know, we've seen that through all the consultation and all the reports and the things you've given us. What I would say is, if you're going to do it, perhaps you do it after 2 years, and you bring it to scrutiny and see if that process has been done right.
Sorry, within the body of the report, it actually says that it will be evaluated and brought back after 12 to 18 months, so not sure why we need an amendment on it. The actual body of the report, I think it's in, bear with me, action plan, 5 and 5.1 actually says that it will be evaluated after a 12 to 18 month period, because undoubtedly we need to see whether we're getting to the 36 or below, so really not sure why the amendment is needed. I do support that, scrutiny could also take it up and look at it, but don't understand the amendment.
So, Councillor Jones, are you still proposing that amendment, or are you happy with the answers that have been given?
I would think it's reasonable to ask for it within 12 months. It does say so in the report, between 12 and 18 months. So just ask that it is included in the recommendation.
Okay, well that will need to be dealt with as an amendment. Is there a seconder? Okay.
Add something here. I think we just need to be very careful about time scales here, because again it'll all relate from the date of implementation of the scheme, so that's the first thing we've got to think. So what I would suggest, Dave, subject to what, I wouldn't say 12 months, I'd say within 15 months, because there's got to be a little bit of leeway. To get 12 months worth of data, you're going to get 12 months worth of data within 12 months. You can't get a report within 12 months. It'll have to be either 13 months or 14 months. So can I respectfully suggest that you have a report back at 15 months, or when all the data is available for you to make a decision, because trying to rush this ain't going to be right and proper. So say 15 months, within 15 months if the data is available, or if not, as soon as reasonably practicable thereafter.
You're saying 15 months, right? Well, the experts have put in the report there's going to be 18 months to 2 years, and I think we've got to stick with what they say. If so long it's going to take, that's how it should be. Yeah, but it's going to be 18 months, I think, you know, to know where we are.
I don't normally argue with a cabinet member, but Sue said 12 months. Okay, so I think let's have a bit of discretion here to say 15 months. If we got the details in 15 months, then why not? All I'm saying is you give the officers appropriate time to say within 15 months, or if it's not available in 15 months, as soon as reasonably practicable thereafter. It could be 18 months, it could be 20 months, but we need really good data to report to you. It's not you know, it's not worth going, we've got to be careful what I say, not worth going, you know, on information which is not robust enough for you to make a decision. You need robust robust information, data to make the right decision. So, Dave, if you're happy with that, I'd suggest, it's a matter for you to make an amendment, but I would suggest 15 months or as soon as possible thereafter.
So my amendment would be that 12 months data is available as soon as possible, following the 12 months.
So you want a report to council giving 12 months data as soon as possible after 12 months data is available? Right. So is that seconded? So are there any further questions about the amendment? No. In that case, I think you'll have to put that to the vote. So that will be an amendment that there should be a report to council to update on the first 12 months data that is available on the date when that data is available. So can we vote on that amendment, please? All those in favour? The amendment is carried, and that means that that amendment will be part of the recommendation.
Can now we put that to a vote, please? Another vote on the whole thing? Can we now vote on the original, the substantive motion, please?
Is everybody clear what they're voting on? You're voting on the original recommendation with that addition now added into it. So I don't have a vote from Councillor Galsworthy. Could you press yours again, please? There we are. That's complete. And it's unanimous.
We're going to item 15, which is an information report. So we are going to... Yep. So we'll go on to any items to deal with any other urgent business correspondence. I have none. So I'll close the meeting. Thank you.